Hello everyone. So I know you probably just watched a vlog from me because I know I just posted one on Saturday. However, I decided to do another reading vlog for you guys because I actually am going to be reading 4 arcs that are all coming out on October 6th. I have never done a complete just arc vlog, and I decided since I actually had quite a few to read, 4 is a significant number, that are all coming out on one day. I think I've had like a couple come out on one day before, but not really. I don't get a ton of arcs, but I actually have 4 coming out on October 6th. So I'm just gonna run through them a little bit for you guys. I have not decided which one I'm gonna start with or not, but I have 2 adult spooky horror books, 1 middle grade, I don't think it's horror, and then 1, I think it's a middle grade graphic novel. So the first one I have here is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I've heard about T. Kingfisher lately, like in the last few months, and I've been very curious about their work. They basically do adult horror, and I've heard a lot of good things about some of the more recent books, and this is the newest one that's going to be coming out. I don't know too much about it, but I have my Netgalley stuff up so I can at least read you guys some of like the summary stuff. So for this one it says, "Pray they are hungry." Kara finds the words in the mysterious bunker that she's discovered behind a hole in the wall of her uncle's house. Freshly divorced and living back at home, Kara now becomes obsessed with these cryptic words and starts exploring this peculiar area, only to discover that it holds portals to countless alternate realities. But these places are haunted by creatures that seem to hear thoughts, and the more one fears them, the stronger they become. Ooh, I'm super excited for this one. I did know what some of these were about when I requested them, but I was approved for them a little while ago, but because I was doing Shadowhunter September, I did not read any of my arcs in September, so I have forgotten what a lot of things are about. And for this one, it is also being compared to Pan's Labyrinth, which I love, so I'm very excited for that one. We also have We Were Restless Things by Cole Nagamatsu, and this one is a debut that is an atmospheric contemporary fantasy about 3 teens coming of age in the wake of a mysterious death. So maybe not necessarily horror or adult, I don't know. But this one says, "Last summer, Link Miller drowned on dry land in the woods, miles away from the nearest body of water. His death was ruled a strange accident, and in the months since, his friends and family have struggled to make sense of it. But Link's close friend, Naomi Amato, knows the truth. Link drowned in an impossible lake that only she can find. And what's more, someone claiming to be Link has been contacting her, warning Naomi to stay out of the forest." Again, I'm very excited. The main reason I wanted to read this one, because it's been on my TBR for a little while, is because of the gorgeous cover. Like, I am enthralled by this cover, and I'm really hoping to like this book. Then we also have The Unexplainable Disappearance of Mars Patel. This one I've actually been approved for a while and wanted to read it closer to release. And this one is by Sheila Chari. I don't know much about this. It is a middle grade, and I've looked at the beginning of the book. It looks like it's not going to necessarily be completely told in a normal book format, because I believe it starts off with like IMs or texts. I will know more when I actually like start reading it. Ooh, and it's based on a Peabody Award-winning podcast, so that's intriguing. Maybe it's a podcast that's at the beginning of the book? We'll have to see. This one says, "Mars Patel's friend Aurora has disappeared. His teachers are clueless, his mom is stressed out about her jobs, but Mars refuses to give up. After all, his own dad disappeared when Mars was a toddler before he and mom moved to Puget Sound from India. Luckily, Mars has a group of loyal friends eager to help. Smart toothpick, strong and stylish JP, and maybe telepathic Caddy." That's intriguing. The clues seem to point toward eccentric tech genius and Mars's hero, Oliver Pruitt, whose popular podcast now seems to be commenting on their quest. But when the friends investigate Pruitt's mysterious elite school, nothing is as it seems, and anyone could be deceiving them. Slick science, corporate conspiracies, and an endearingly nerdy protagonist make this first book in the series a fresh, exciting sci-fi adventure. So that'll be a really refreshing change of pace from the horror books. I think I'm gonna maybe try like horror, this other horror, we'll see. And then finally we have Mary, The Adventures of Mary Shelley's great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter by Bree Grant. So this one is a teen graphic novel according to this one, and I don't know, it just seemed really intriguing for October because it is like the great something granddaughter of Mary Shelley, so that sounds cool. And it says, angsty teenager Mary Shelley is not interested in carrying on her family's celebrated legacy of being a great writer, but she soon discovers that she has the not so celebrated and super secret Shelley power to heal monsters, just like her famous ancestor, and those monsters are not going to let her ignore her true calling anytime soon. Okay, so this is taking on Mary Shelley as a writer, but also in like a twist of like she could heal monsters herself. So I'm, yeah, very intrigued, and because it is a graphic novel, I feel like it's gonna be a good maybe break in between books. I think I'm gonna be going with We Were Restless Things. I don't know why, like I could have picked either that one or The Hollow Places, but I don't know, there's something calling to me about that cover, that hand. It's just doing something for me. Okay, so that's what we're gonna be starting with. It is almost lunchtime, so I will see you guys once I start reading it. Okay, I wasn't actually going to give you guys an update tonight because I'm only like 9% of the way into We Were Restless Things. I started getting a headache earlier tonight before dinner while I was trying to read, and so I did actually end up switching to Mary, the graphic novel. And I ended up finishing it after dinner when I was feeling a little bit better, but I just wanted something that was, you know, easy to read. And I think I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Leon is texting me things. I was really intrigued by the premise of the book, because basically we have Mary, who is like the great granddaughter of Mary Shelley, and basically all of the women in her family line have been like good authors, and she is like 17, something like that. She's in high school, and she is sort of having to deal with the fact that there's pressure on her to figure out her future, like what kind of writer she wants to be, because that's basically all her mom thinks she can be. And then she discovers that she can heal monsters, sort of like a doctor. And I did like the premise a lot. However, it felt like we didn't have enough time to really enjoy and appreciate the different aspects that were being thrown at us, because it felt like we were given everything very quickly. We were getting reveals about Mary's power and her family and her friends and the monsters, and there's like a weird demon-possessed possum after her too, and it was just like one after the other after the other after the other. It's only 140 something pages. And I really did like the art style, and I feel like the story could have gone somewhere better. I didn't have enough time to really appreciate anything. It was just so much info dumping, like one after the other after the other after the other. And so because of that, I just don't feel like I enjoyed it as much as I was hoping to. It was not bad. It's a 3. It's not like I hated it or anything. I just was wishing for more, I guess it was. So I don't think I'm gonna be reading much more tonight, but I do want to read more in general. It just depends on how my head feels. So we'll see. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, and we'll try another book. Okay, so I haven't checked in a little while, mostly because I got to 9% of We Were Restless Things the first day. I got through another 9%, so up to 18% on the second day, and then today is the third day. I didn't actually read much yesterday because of the fact that I ended up doing an eye exam and I got my eyes dilated, and so that was just not so great. It was always a little bit blurry trying to read stuff on my phone for a while, and so that just didn't happen. And then today, I am currently on 36%, so I've basically doubled what I've read so far, and I really don't know what to think. It is so slow going. So the thing is we do know at the very beginning of the book that one of our main characters of Jonas is sort of moving into a new town with his father because he got kicked out of school for some reason, and his father's girlfriend's daughter is Noemi, or Nomi to her friends, and they are sort of having to now deal with the fact that there was a kid at Nomi's school who died like the last year. It does seem that she was friends with him, and he drowned in a forest with no water around, but there is some sort of lake that is sometimes there and sometimes not there. And that's really all we got going on. We do have some of Nomi's friends, and Jonas is very much inserting himself into their lives, so we do have a lot of overlap of stuff going on. But I'm 36% of the way into a 400-page book, and it's slow going. I am not too sure what we're going to get out of this or not. I really did think I was going into some sort of horror-y thriller thing, and it's definitely not. I feel like the writing is trying to be a little bit more atmospheric and trying to give us more about these people, because we do have a lot of like flashbacks from Nomi into stuff that happened before, and her relationship with Link and his sister, and like how she sort of knew him. But again, I don't really see the point of it yet, so I'm just because of that, I did also decide to start The Unexplainable Disappearance of Mars Patel, which is the middle grade mystery sci-fi, I think it was. I can't really tell you what the genre of that is yet, because I don't think I'm quite far enough in. I'm currently on chapter 5, which is around page 36, or this is in like the Adobe digital editions, and for that it says it's on 44 out of 304. So even though I'm actually on page 37, I'm 44 pages out of 304 pages in here. So I'm sure that there was some sort of like, probably like the beginning stuff that's not really counted in the book. And so far I am enjoying it. Basically we follow Mars, who a couple of his friends have sort of gone missing. And the thing is, they're in 6th grade, and so I'm really liking the characterization of like him and his friends that we have been able to see so far, but it doesn't seem like any adults care at all that he hasn't seen one of his friends in 5 days and the other one sort of disappeared during the middle of a school day. Not only that, but they disappeared during a code red, which is basically like an active shooter drill. It does appear that it's probably like a drill in here, although I don't know. I used to work at a school, and like you did have to do those kind of drills every so often with the kids, and so I feel like that could be sort of triggering, a slight trigger warning, I guess, for the fact that it could have been an active shooter. I don't know. It's very intriguing. I'm curious to see what else we're gonna get, because that's basically all we've gotten so far. But I do like the way it started out. It's very quick and easy to read. I like the kids. I'm a little concerned about the adults that don't seem to give a shit yet. So we'll see about that. But I guess that's my update for now. I am gonna be going to bed soon because Presley is asleep and I came down here to do some stuff, and then I will hopefully get some more reading in. Okay, so I ended up reading like 140 pages of Mars Patel yesterday, and I just ended up finishing it today because it was a very quick read. I think I'm only giving it a 3 stars. The concept was very intriguing because it's basically Mars and some of his friends realizing that a couple other of his friends disappeared, and like I mentioned before, the adults don't really seem to care. However, the further we got into this story, again, the adults don't care, but the kids just sort of seem like one note. We have one kid who's the smartest kid ever, and that's like all he is. We have one kid who is like strong and cares about food, and that's all they are. And then we have one girl who can apparently sort of read minds, and that's like all she can do. Like, it's very one note per character. There weren't many issues in the book except for them trying to find these other kids, and we eventually get there at like 80% of the book, and it just kept getting weirder and weirder and weirder. I don't even know how to describe exactly what happened. We end on a completely big cliffhanger, and it's one of those cliffhangers that I don't personally like. I don't mind cliffhangers too much as long as we get some sort of like resolution in the story. But this one felt almost like the cliffhanger was the climax of the story. I don't know, it was just very interesting. Also, we do have a non-binary character in this book, and because they are in 6th grade, we also have bullies in this book. So there is a lot of, is it transphobia if it's also with a non-binary character? I don't know for sure. There was a lot of misgendering going on. They use they, them pronouns, and the bullies and some of the adults were not using the correct pronouns. So that could be triggering for some people, just keep that in mind. I don't know how to feel about this. I having higher expectations, especially after reading the first like 100-ish pages, and it just kept getting more weird and the characters weren't doing it for me necessarily. It wasn't bad. It's based on a podcast that I've never heard of, and I don't know if the podcast would necessarily be better. I don't know. I'm gonna try and read more of We Were Restless Things today, since I am closing in on the halfway mark for that one. But that one is very slow going, so we'll see. Okay guys, it is Monday morning, and I did end up finishing We Were Restless Things last night. I'm really not sure what I feel about this book. I think I'm giving it a 3-star because it's like a 400-page book where I didn't really get sort of invested or think it really picked up its pace until around like the 47-48% mark. And for me, that's a little bit too far into a book to then finally sort of care about what's happening in the characters. One of my favorite characters is one that you don't really get to see that much until around that mark, and it's definitely not one I thought I was going to like. But then we don't really get to see much happen. I think my biggest issue is that I'm not too sure what sort of like genre to put this in. I was really thinking it was going to be more spooky horror stuff, but a lot of it is Nomi looking back onto her relationship and friendship with Link, who is deceased. We do have Jonas, who is new in town, so it almost sort of felt like a contemporary more than fabulism or fantasy or horror or spooky or anything like that. And it wasn't necessarily bad, but it was very, very slow moving. Like, I really wanted it to pick up its pace, especially at the beginning of the book. One thing I do think the book does well, in my opinion, is that one of our characters is asexual, and so they have to deal with relationships with other people, especially a romantic relationship in this book. And they're sort of having to explain that they're pretty sure they're never going to feel sexual attraction for this other character. And there was some talk about compromises in relationships, like, if I love you enough, I would be okay with having sex with you, even though it's not something that I would enjoy. And then the other person feeling like they shouldn't have to compromise in that way, but there are always compromises in relationships. So I thought the conversation was very intriguing, especially since I do consider myself demisexual, so I don't feel that conversation is 100% like what I am. I feel like some people might definitely see themselves in this person, and I thought that was a very interesting aspect. We do also have a character who has to deal with parental abuse, so that is definitely a trigger warning. And then there was just some weird goings on as well. There was one quote, let me pull it up for you guys, that I actually ended up tweeting about because it was so out of place for me and I'm not too sure how to feel about it. So we're in a sort of like relationship montage thing in this book where they talk about the different things that these two characters do in a relationship. And so there's normal stuff like he kissed her neck, she kissed his belly. When he told her he loved her, she even kissed his mouth. She sat half on his lap when they couldn't get 2 seats together at the theater. But then, she took home the smushed but still edible cupcakes from work and fed them to him from her mouth. Like, really? Is that what we're doing right now? It's just one of those things where I'm not too sure about that. But again, I did like some of the stuff that went on in here. My only problem is I feel like it definitely took too long to get going. If it was just like the second half of the book, I actually do think I probably would have rated it like a 4 stars. It was much more about the sort of spooky aspect. I mean, I think I mentioned it before. The whole premise is that a boy in this town was found drowned in the middle of a forest that has no water around it. And there's apparently some sort of lake that is sometimes there, sometimes not. It's very spooky and mysterious. And like this, like I mentioned, the second half of the book, I do think I probably would have given 4 stars. It is a little bit weird. I'm not too sure how I feel about the ending, but it was much easier to read and I was invested. However, the first half, I don't know what I feel about it, like, at all. It was so slow moving that if it wasn't an arc that I had, I probably would have DNF'd it. But I kept going, and I did sort of like the second half. So it's a very, very interesting book. I'm sure there's gonna be some people that absolutely love that it is slow moving at the beginning, but I wasn't too sure about it. Then I still have one more book to read, and it's Monday. I was really hoping to get this vlog up on Monday, but I'm doing my best with the reading. I'm hoping to get this vlog maybe up tonight or tomorrow, but I still have to read The Holo Places by T. Kingfisher. I've seen a few like sort of reviews on Twitter that people have been posting that they've read it and they think it's really spooky. So I'm actually very excited about this one. I'm gonna try and keep my expectations low because so far all 3 books that I've read this week for these arcs have all been 3 stars. They have not been as much as what I've been wanting. So I'm really hoping this one pulls it out of the bag. And gives us, you know, a high note to end this on. Okay, it is just past 7. I have finished The Holo Places, and I think I'm giving it another 3 stars. I just don't know what to feel about this book either. I was really hoping for, I guess, one thing, and this just didn't end up living up to my expectations. The summary that we have on Goodreads does mention that Kara finds a mysterious bunker in the hole of the wall of her uncle's house, and in that hole and through the bunker are portals to alternate realities and that kind of thing, and I was just, I guess, expecting more of that. She does end up going with a friend through to this area with the portals, but they never really find any other actual portals to any other alternate realities. That part of the book was okay, but I feel like they were trying to do too much science-y stuff that I just really didn't understand because I don't think Kara understood. I don't even know if the author understood because it sounded like it was trying to be science-y, but it also was just very, very confusing. And then we had a whole other element near the end of the book that just sort of felt like it was throwing everything into it at once for us. Part of like the how everything happened was, I felt, given to the reader quite a few times, and I guess that one element was going to be related to what was going on. However, it felt like it took forever for Kara to realize that this was part of what was going on. And so yeah, the ending was just very confusing. Maybe I just don't get it, or maybe I was just expecting something completely different, but there was body horror in it for a little bit, and like that kind of stuff I thought was really, really well done. So it was creepy on some parts, but I didn't feel like the whole execution of everything came together really, and so 3 stars. I was really hoping for it to be better. Like, I don't even know, is this vlog a good vlog if every single read that I've read for it is 3 stars? I have no idea. No idea. I'm sorry. So I guess that's everything. Like I said, every single read has been 3 stars. I don't know if that means anything for you guys. I really don't think any of these books are horrible or that you should never pick them up. I do definitely feel like there's probably people that like some of these books more than I do, and I did like some of the stuff that I've read. Out of the ones that I read for this vlog, I actually do think the Unexplainable Disappearance of Mars Patel is my favorite. It is that middle grade sort of sci-fi one, but again, it just didn't fully come together at the end and the characters were a little bit flat. But I really did like the writing style, and I'm a little bit intrigued to see what's going to happen next. And then my least favorite, I don't know if I can pick because they're all 3 stars. They weren't horrible. But I guess that's it from me. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye.